Anybody who says they know exactly what the Vietnamese government's going to do is full of shit. I built my reputation by helping people enter during the pandemic. It's going to be this expert visas. This is the way. If you want to get into the country, this is the way you can do it. So people did choose to leave, but none of our guys were forced to leave. What's going on, guys? It's the New York Nomad. So today, for the new channel, I wanted to put down some information about our service, explain exactly what it is that we do when it comes to Southeast Asia, talk a little bit about what we're trying to do in the future, talk a little bit about why we do things the way we do them and why that has a value. I think it's important because I think a lot of people don't really have a clear picture of what went on in Southeast Asia during the pandemic. And I think if you're coming in for the first time looking to move to these places, context is hugely important. So I'm hoping today in this video to provide some context and to give you guys a little bit of a picture of everything that went down over the course of the pandemic. First, a little bit of background on me if you're just discovering the channel. I have another channel called the New York Nomad. Originally it was called the New York Nomad 420, then it became the White Monkey Syndicate, and then it went back to being the New York Nomad. Because initially what had happened was I started doing YouTube videos as a joke, as kind of for fun. I wasn't taking it very seriously. I came to Vietnam and I wasn't even sure I really wanted to teach English. I just kind of, tested the waters a little and got a feel for whether or not this was going to be the right thing for me. And I ultimately ended up doing it, right? As I started building relationships, I started seeing that there was a lot of room for helping people to avoid shady and dishonest actors, because a lot of the companies there were doing like very dishonest things, like not paying the foreigners, taking their passports when they would tell them that, oh, we need to do some kind of a visa approval, and then refusing to return them. I started seeing all kinds of drama, and I started realizing that there's some value to being able to provide people with legit, honest contacts. And I started out very humbly. I was charging $100 to set people up with job contacts, visa contacts, and housing contacts. It was never meant to be this big business. I was just having fun, goofing off, showing my experiences in Asia and just being very brutally honest about the way that I saw life and the teaching industry. As I started to develop a reputation, I started to get more and more customers. Eventually, in 1 month, I did 10 of these kind of services. And I said, well, if I'm doing 10 a month, then I should just increase my prices. So what I did was I raised it to 200. I left it for a while, and again, the same thing happened. I started in some months hitting more than 10 in a month. So I said, okay, well, if people will pay 200, I think 300 is fair. So I raised it to 300. And I kept hooking people up with jobs, doing visas, just setting people up with contacts. And then the pandemic hit. And in the beginning of the pandemic, it still was kind of not so difficult to bring people into the country. I was still only charging about $300. Now there was other costs, but I mean, that was my fee for my connections and for me to get you hired and to process everything and get you into the country. Fast forward a few months, it started getting more and more difficult to get people in. It got more and more complex. It got more and more expensive. The prices that the government wanted in Vietnam started to become very high. So I had to adjust accordingly, and I increased my prices, and I have not changed them since. Throughout the entire pandemic, I've kept my prices universally basically the same, because I feel like for what I offer, what I charge is very fair. Because what they get when you work with me, for example, is not a visa agent. You get somebody who's going to solve problems. So for example, if there's a problem with the visa, if there's a problem with the sponsor, we have other sponsors, we have other agents. We can always find somebody to push through. And if you go through my other channel and you go back to when we were doing customer interviews, there's tons of interviews with people who had really difficult circumstances. Something went wrong. They were denied by the People's Committee, and we were still able to get them into Vietnam. So I built my reputation by helping people enter during the pandemic. There was a point where we were literally getting in families. I went from getting, people TEFL jobs to bringing entire families into Vietnam during the height of the pandemic. I've worked with all kinds of people who probably under normal circumstances wouldn't want anything to do with me because I'm foul-mouthed and I have a bizarre sense of humor, but they felt that they could trust me, and we were able to work together and get some sort of a goal accomplished for them. I work with people who I'm still friends with today. And ultimately what ended up happening, guys, was as the business grew, I started taking on a staff. So I have a person who helps me with the SEO, the marketing, they help me with organizing the contacts, with expanding into new markets. markets. I brought my wife in as a full-time employee, helping with marketing, video editing. So we are a completely DIY business. And I eventually connected with a guy who's now my business partner, who you can see in the videos, Matt, because he was initially looking at coming to Vietnam, and I was not in the place yet where I was opening companies for people. This was something like, at this point, I was doing the visa shuffle. I was trying to find loopholes and ways to get people into Vietnam. But he introduced the whole idea of opening companies for business visas to me. And to be honest, I see this as the future for travel. The days of just coming in on tourist visas and endlessly renewing tourist visas or using shell companies to sponsor business visas, I really don't think that that's going to be a long-term possibility in these countries. I think, the time for that is becoming smaller and smaller, and that window is getting smaller and smaller. And I think that people who are looking to be expats long-term, I think that opening companies and getting that business visa sponsored by your own LLC is the future, and it's going to be the way that people are going to be living as expats, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, because it does seem like a lot of these countries are kind of closing up these loopholes for long stay visas, and not saying that they don't want people to come, but what they're doing is they want to funnel them through a system where either they can tax or they can have an idea of what amount of money will be kept inside the country and kept in a bank account. They want to benefit from the foreigners being in their country, and to some extent I understand that, but that's not really what this video is about. This video is going to be mostly about our services in Cambodia and Vietnam, and I want to clarify some things for people who don't know us yet. People who have worked with us, they know why it's valuable, but those of you who are just getting to know us, I think it's important that I explain a little bit of what we do and why we do it and why we cost more than using some kind of a random visa agent you might find in a Facebook group. But first, let me start by saying I am not a visa agent. I'm a consultant and a fixer. So essentially what I do is I connect the dots, right? I have seen throughout my experience of living, working, and doing business in Vietnam, as well as in other parts of Southeast Asia. If you include all the places I've lived in Southeast Asia, I've lived there for right around 10 years, between Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. What I have seen over the years has given me a blueprint on the safest ways to solve problems for foreigners. I'm not the kind of person who is judgmental. I understand not everybody has a degree. I understand not everybody's circumstances are the same. I understand that the completely above board way doesn't work for every single person. So I try not to be judgmental, and I try to just connect people to contacts that can facilitate the things they want done. As a fixer, essentially what I do is I source out contacts that can do the things you want done. I have reliable agents, I have job recruiters, I have real estate agents, I have everything you need to make a relocation to any of these countries much easier. And again, we're not just doing Southeast Asia, but I'm going to talk specifically about Cambodia and Vietnam, and I'm going to explain a little bit as to why these services are so valuable. So for those of you who don't know what happened towards the end of the pandemic, Vietnam had an election. And after the election, a kind of law and order candidate came into power. Immediately, he cracked down on the visa industry, because at the time, there had been a couple Koreans that had been brought over on shell companies, and they had brought in the pandemic, and this is still when all these countries were like really deathly clinging to this COVID-0 fantasy, so it became a big deal. Now, what's ironic about that is I was dealing with agents that were up in Hanoi that were literally bringing Chinese in and packing them into quarantine hotels, 6 to 8 people to a hotel, and they were getting away with it because they controlled the hotel and they had connections to the local government in these northern provincial areas. So unfortunately, the Koreans got blamed, even though standard operating procedure for many of these companies was sneaking in barrels of Chinese and stuffing them into hotels. Not to mention illegal border crossings, but the propaganda coming from China was that the virus came from Europe. So a segment of the population believed that the white foreigners or the European foreigners or the, even black, whatever your background is, but with passports from the West, you were the cause of the pandemic. And now, not everybody in Vietnam believed this, but there was a sizable segment of the population that did. So to appease that segment of the population and to show that these guys were serious on law and order, they went super hard on the sponsor companies for business visas. Now, you're going to see in expat groups people talking about, oh, you shouldn't have used a shell company and you're in Vietnam illegally and blah, blah, blah. But first off, guys, this was standard operating procedure for a very long time in Vietnam. If you went to a travel agent in Thailand, said, I want to go to Vietnam, they would arrange a tourist visa or a business visa for you. And in the cases of the business visa, it was almost always a shell company. This is just how business was done for a long, long time. Now, what I had observed over the time was I never felt very comfortable with that. So I always preferred to bring in foreigners and to get them sponsored by real companies that had capital. And my bet was correct. It turned out to be the way to go, because all the people that we brought into the country, nobody actually had to leave. We were able to provide alternatives for all of them if they wanted to stay. Some people chose to leave because they saw endless lockdowns, they saw a population that was becoming a little bit more hostile to them. So people did choose to leave, but none of our guys were forced to leave because all of their sponsors were connected to real companies. Now, that is going to cost more than if you're trying to come in using a fake shell company. Now, I always felt that that was more valuable to me, and it was worth the extra money for the peace of mind. So what we would do is we would contact companies that we had relationships with through our Vietnamese liaisons, right? We would find out how many foreigners can they sponsor, what's the tax burden, and then what we would do is we would include the cost of the tax burden for the time of the sponsorship into the fee that the foreigner would pay. So not only were they just paying for some fake shell company, they were paying for a real company that was going to pay taxes on them. So when the crackdowns came, if any companies were checked, they had a tax record for the foreigners that we were able to arrange. I always felt that this was the more responsible way, and it was proven to be correct as they started to purge the business visas. Now, for those of you who don't know, thousands of people were kicked out of Vietnam, including retirees, people who had lived there a long time, some people who had been there since the country had reopened. But they were given 15 days to fuck off. Some of them were fined insane amounts of money for overstays. Some people ended up on blacklists and had to pay insane amounts of money to get off. Some people we couldn't even get off blacklists because whatever company they were working for, maybe they did something dishonest to the foreigner didn't want to sign the contract, so they blacklisted him, and they went all the way to the top of immigration and the Labor Department and made it impossible for the foreigners to stay. In many cases, we were able to get people off a blacklist, but this created a massive fiasco. And now, if you're following what's happening in Vietnam, there's the mass cancellation of tourist visas. So now here's where it gets a little bit fuzzy. There's a lot of messaging coming from the Vietnamese English language newspapers that are saying, oh, the country's going to open in March, or the country's going to open in April. And I'm going to caution you guys, I'm not going to say that it's not going to happen, because in theory, anything's possible. But for those of you who are kind of new to the game, they have been saying this since the beginning of the pandemic. It's been, oh, they're going to open in 3 months. Oh, they're going to open in 4 months. Oh, nobody knows. They're going to open when they open. And it will probably happen very rapidly, and we have no idea what it's going to look like. But if I were to base this on what I'm seeing happening with visas, I don't think that it's going to happen, and I'll tell you why. Because right now they are making a lot of money off of the people who are desperate to stay. Back in the day, if you would have ended up on a blacklist, the max you would have had to pay to get off a blacklist would have been maybe $1,000, $2,000, easy peasy, right? I'm seeing immigration ask for numbers like $5,000 to get off blacklists. So it has not gotten easier in any way, and they just recently passed a declaration on what they were going to do with immigration. This was for after New Year's, after the Western New Year's has started to be implemented, where they are canceling all the visas that are pending, and even people who are in the process of applying for new visas at the time of the passing of this new law. They forfeited all their money, their application, and they had to either start over again or leave the country. So these are not the kind of signs that a country gives that it's about to swing its doors open. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not. I mean, because they've done unpredictable things in the past, and honestly, anybody who says they know exactly what the Vietnamese government's going to do is full of shit. At the end of the day, they're going to do whatever they do, and it's up to them, and we're just here for the ride, right? So what I try to do is I try my best to create a situation where we can get you into the country, and based on the things that I've seen that have gone wrong for other people, we try to mitigate that. So if you're looking for the cheapest service and you just want to get into the country in the cheapest possible way, don't bother messaging me. Don't waste my time. I'm not interested in hearing about your financial problems. It's not, that's not what we're here to do. We're here to help people who are serious about getting into Vietnam or into Cambodia and doing so in a safe way. Now, let me explain a little bit about how that affects places like Cambodia. So Cambodia just opened up. As of right now, it seems pretty simple. It seems like there's people who are using shell companies to sponsor business visas. It seems like they're using shell companies to transfer tourist visas to business visas. And maybe everything will stay okay with that. Maybe it won't. But my concern for my customers, and if I'm going to sign my name to something, is that right now everything's okay. But if in 6 months the Cambodian government decides, well, you know, we're going to crack down on business visas, and we see a repeat of what happened in Vietnam, it's going to be a horror show for everybody who's used these shell companies. So what I prefer to do is I prefer to cooperate with agents and with sponsor companies that are real companies that pay taxes, that have employees, and that have capital. That way, if there is a problem and there is anybody who looks into the visa, they can look and see, oh, okay, well, this company's paid their taxes, their social security contribution for the employee, and there's not really any reason to look much further than that. Now, if, for example, they find a company that exists and it's got like 300 foreigners sponsored and the company hasn't made $1, and suddenly the government decides, well, we're going to start caring about this like they did in Vietnam, then that creates a massive problem. So essentially what I try to do with my service is I try to create a service where we can mitigate these kind of problems before they happen, right? So we want to have a company that's a real company sponsoring you. We want to have an agent that gives a shit whether you get in trouble or not. We want to make sure they're going to be attentive. We're going to make sure if there's a problem or if there's some additional documents that they're going to get sorted out. You're going to have recourse. If something goes wrong when you're working with us, we're going to find somebody who can fix the problem. We're going to have resources, contacts that we can throw at the situation until we can get a resolution that you're satisfied with. Now, we don't guarantee that everything's going to be sunshine and roses because these countries can be very unpredictable. But what we do is we try to filter out a lot of the garbage and essentially connect you to people that you can rely on and that are acting in good faith and actually care what happens to you. Because a lot of agents don't give a shit. You're going to give them your money, you're going to get whatever they promise you. When something goes wrong, they're going to say, kick rocks, motherfucker, and pretend they never even met you. And I've seen it happen a ton of times. We had this one guy, he had the opportunity to work with us back when my fee was only $300 to get into Vietnam. He opted to use a fake shell company, which I'm sure was much cheaper at the time, and he had to come crawling back to us and get himself off a blacklist. Cost him more than 10 grand, and we're still in the process of trying to get him off, and we don't even know if we're going to be able to do it because the immigration official, he had went down there himself to speak to them. This is another thing. People in these fucking groups will try to tell you guys to go to immigration yourself. You are never going to get the same outcome going to immigration yourself as you are going to get if you have a liaison that's actually well connected and is acting on your behalf in good faith. Now that's where it gets complicated. You're using agents you don't know. Yeah, okay, somebody gives them a good review. Maybe they got a business visa extension from them, so they think this person is the almighty, but that doesn't mean they know what their business practices are over the course of a long time. The people who I work with, you know, we kind of know who's who and what they've done over the years when it comes to visas. Because when I choose who I'm going to work with, I have a vetting process that I put everybody through. And I have Vietnamese people that look into them for me and meet with them and talk to them in Vietnamese. And we do the same thing in Cambodia. We have a Khmer partners that check out the contacts to make sure the contacts are legitimate. We have partners that are expats in the country for more than 12 years. So we're cooperating with people who know the system and who know who they can recommend to you to do the right thing. Now, this fella ended up in a whole heap of shit just because he wanted to save a couple $100 and opt to use a shell company. So when that crackdown came, nobody saw it coming, and lots of people got blacklisted. Now fine, you want to fuck off, you just want to leave the country, you don't give a shit, okay, you go to immigration, you get an exit visa, you pay them whatever you owe. But it's not that straightforward if you actually want to stay, or if you actually want to be able to return to the country. Now you're in a mess. Now it's going to be an expensive mess. And they got you by the balls because there's not a whole lot of alternatives. You know, you could try to talk to them yourselves, but a lot of times they're either A, not going to talk to you at all. If they do talk to you, they're going to be afraid what they say to you because they don't want to talk to the foreigner too much directly about things that, you know, may or may not be completely legal. And you're just not going to get the same results. Now, there's a lot of people who think, oh, you know, I can just do it myself. And I'm going to give you another example of how stupid that is. Cambodia had recently just started allowing people to change the tourist visas to the business visas. Now, this is not officially legal. This is not out there in the public, that the government has not released any papers saying that this is okay or this is acceptable. And a couple of agents have started to do it publicly, and it seems like for now it's okay. Now, I caution you, in my opinion, it's always better to enter the country on the correct visa than it is to have to do something in the gray area, pay some agent, use some kind of a shady shell company. But before all the agents started peeking their heads out, there was a couple stupid foreigners who went to immigration themselves thinking they don't need an agent, and they spooked one of the officials, and then suddenly for a while it was shut down and it couldn't be done. But this is another example of know-it-alls who follow everything they hear in an expat group. So, you know, you can create yourself a bigger problem than what you would have if you actually just dealt with a liaison that you can trust. You know, there's this sort of attitude in these expat groups around visas that all these agents are scum and they're all criminals and everybody's trying to rip them off. And this is just a persecution complex by a bunch of sad losers who were never able to make the right relationships in a country. Not all agents are bad people. Not all sponsor companies are bad people. Some people want to make money. They want to do business. They want to help foreigners stay in Vietnam, or they want to help foreigners come to Cambodia. But the problem is, you know, they don't want to get themselves into any kind of illegal mess. So where we come in is we try to find the safest possible way to connect them to a customer that wants the services they want to provide, while at the same time protecting the interests of the customers and protecting the interests of the sponsor companies. We don't want to work with people that are irresponsible. They're going to do things that are blatantly illegal, that even if right now is okay, at some point may not be okay. And we feel like that is worth the extra money that we charge. The only thing you pay to me is my consulting fee. Any other fees that you pay will be paid directly either to the sponsor companies, the agents, or, you know, whatever you need to pay to send documents or, you know, flights or whatever your COVID stuff is. None of that gets paid to me. You just pay me my consulting fee. Whether that's me finding you jobs, whether that's me arranging visas, whether it's opening companies, our consulting fee is the only thing that gets paid to us, right? So that's for me to provide you with my contacts, not just for arranging whatever you need arranged, but also contacts for housing, for employment, for transportation, local fixers who can find things for you, who can save you money on things that would be difficult for you to find yourself. We basically provide a full relocation service, and we don't just do the things that a visa agent would do, right? And I also need to make this clear. Right now, if you approach a visa agent in Vietnam, there is not going to be anybody who's going to be able to just, oh, you don't have a job? No problem. Let me get you an expert visa. That shit is over. My original business model of finding people sponsor companies that are real companies is one of the only ways you can still get into Vietnam. So let me kind of clarify a little bit the big picture here, okay? Vietnam, for example, and we'll talk about Cambodia because it's a different animal, but let's just talk about Vietnam first. There's only a couple ways you can come in. As of recently, they've made it easier for people who have TRCs that are in good standing and exemptions to return to Vietnam. This is great news because there's a lot of people who are separated from family and it's complicated, and I'm really happy that they did that. There's expert visas, where you're employed as an expert and you have to have a 3 to 5 year experience letter and a degree. There's tourist visas, but those are only guided tours in Nha Trang and in Phu Quoc. You cannot move around, you cannot go to other places, you can only be on this guided tour. It's a sandbox. It's basically designed for Chinese tourists. It is not a backdoor in, because now that they've made the exemptions easier to enter, you know, there's not really any need for you to be interested in the tourist visas for the people that we're talking to, right? Then there's opening a company, and we can help you do that. We offer consulting services for opening companies. We work with a Singapore-based firm, so there's a lot of accountability. It's not some lawyer on a Facebook group in a Vietnam expat page. We're working with people who are doing everything to the letter of the law. This is by far the most legal way to enter Vietnam or Cambodia and have a business in your name. Your visa is attached to your business. It's the safest and most legitimate way to be in the country. And I think that in the future, this is the way that a lot of long-term living is going to take place, not just in these countries. As far as, you know, alternatives to the investment and opening a company, it's going to be this expert visas. This is the way. If you want to get into the country, this is the way you can do it. And I have a contact who can do expert visas without employment. And I also have a contact that can do it with employment, where they get you a part-time job teaching English in public schools in Saigon. The pay is $420K an hour. They only require you to work 10 hours a week. They'll sponsor your visa. They'll cover everything. We have to pay somebody in the company, obviously, to do this, but they'll do it. Right? So you'll have a little part-time job. You are 100% legal in the country because you are actually employed by the company sponsoring you. Now you work part-time, you want to have a different job, you want to do something different. Eventually you want to leave the job, you find a better job. There's not going to be any problems because we're paying somebody in the company, so you're a customer, not an employee. It's going to be very easy for us to transfer that TRC, transfer that work permit. There's not going to be any drama, right? It's going to be smooth because, again, you're a customer. So, you know, they're going to accommodate you. You can teach very close to where you live. They're going to do whatever they can to make it as easy and comfortable for you as possible. Now, if you absolutely do not want to work, we have a lady who can help you get in, and there's no work requirement. Now, this is more in the gray area. She's using responsible companies to do this, but she's not willing to sponsor anyone beyond a 1-year TRC because it's just, that's what they're willing to do, right? With no work requirement. Now, third, I have a partner who owns an LLC, and we can add you to his LLC also. He's only willing to do it 1 or 2 times, so it's first come, first serve. If you're interested in coming into Vietnam, we have that as an option as well. You can PM me for specific prices. We can explain our consulting fee to you because it's going to be different depending on what you choose to do, whether you want to open a company or whether you just want us to arrange a set of circumstances that allows you to get an expert visa. So the first thing I have to say is if you do not have a strong passport, in the cases of Vietnam, right? In the case of Vietnam, we really can't do anything for you. You're going to need to have a G7 passport. You need to have a passport from like the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Western Europe. We can do South Africa, and we could do Singapore, we could do Japan, Korea. In some situations, we can do India, but if it's with the teaching requirement, it's going to be much more difficult, right? Because what is going to have to happen is the partner that's working within the HR of the company that we're going to use to sponsor you, they're going to need to get that by their boss. So they're not, and unfortunately, racism is like a very real thing in hiring, and especially in English teaching in Vietnam. So, if you're not white, but you have a strong passport, it's not going to be a problem. But if you're not white and you don't have a strong passport, let's just not waste each other's time because I'm not going to be able to help you. It's not that I don't want to help you. I would love to take everybody's money. The more business that I get, the more people I can offer services to, the better it is for me. So this is not something that I approve of. It's not something that I'm happy about, but I just need to be frank with you up front. The sponsorship without employment, it's the same. You need to have a reasonably strong passport, you need to have a degree, and you need to have an experience letter. As of right now, there's next to no way to get into Vietnam outside of opening your own company if you don't have a degree. Now, let me first say about the experience letter. You don't need to worry too much. It can be an experience letter from any employer and has to say you've worked for them for 3 to 5 years. You can make a fake if you want. It's up to you. I'm not going to tell you to do it or not to do it. I'm just going to say that it's a big gray area, and if you're going to do it, it's at your own risk, okay? I don't endorse the idea, but I'm also not gonna lie to you, it probably will work as long as it looks official. And then all those documents need to be taken to the local Vietnamese consulate, the closest one to where you live, authenticated, translated into Vietnamese. Okay, now that that's out of the way, what we do that a visa agent can't do is we don't just process the paperwork, we provide the sponsor. So we have sponsor companies that are willing to work with foreigners under certain sets of circumstances, which we can explain when you message us, and they're willing to sponsor foreigners, again, as long as it's safe for them to do so. A lot of times you'll see these expats pages, you'll see people, everyone, oh, everything's a scam, everything's a scam. Well, the Vietnamese businesses have just as much to lose as you do. So, as much as you're worried that someone's gonna rip you off, they're worried that they're gonna get into legal trouble. So what we try to do is we try to create a situation to where you're able to get the visa services that you want, the sponsorship that you want, without putting these companies in any real risk. So what we do, again, I'm going to stress this, is consulting, and we are fixers, and we connect the dots, right? I am not an ESL recruiter. Don't send me your fucking CV. I don't give a shit. I can tell you what I can do for you based on your nationality and your documentation. We have other ways of bringing people in as well. If you have your heart set on teaching, we have a tremendous amount of ESL contacts. I mean, as soon as you work with us, you get access to all our contacts, right? You don't have to take them if you don't plan to teach, but if you'd want them, I'll create about 50 or 60 group messages with recruiters that I've worked with over the years, and you're gonna have more job opportunities than you would even know what to do with. We have email lists. We're gonna just overload you with contacts for Vietnam, right? And then what we can do is you can just pay our consulting fee. We can start to shop you to recruiters. We can see what offers you get, and hopefully we can find somebody who's willing to sponsor you. This is the cheapest way to go because maybe we can get some of the costs paid for by these companies. Again, if you have the right documents, and again, if you have the right nationality that they're looking for, then that's even better. Failing that, if no one's biting or nobody's giving you the offers that you really want, then we have the option to pay somebody. And if you really don't want to teach, we do have somebody who can get you into the country without teaching requirement. Now, I don't necessarily recommend it because out of all the choices, it's the most gray area. The way I would suggest would be to contact me while we still have this available, connect you to my friend's business, because then I have more control over the situation. If there is a problem, we're going to see it coming from miles away, and we're going to be able to address it. If we're using the third party that can do the approvals without employment, I have less control over the situation. Now, I know they act in good faith because I've given them lots of customers and they've always done the right thing by the customers. But I do recommend, in my opinion, if you can attach your sponsorship to a job that you're actually working for, this is safer and better for you in the long term. If you want to open a company, this is the safest way, but you're going to need to have about 45,000 US dollars to invest, right? Now, that's not being paid to me. That's just the amount of money that you're going to send to yourself into your business account, and it's going to need to be kept in Vietnam, right? Not everybody has that kind of resources, but if you do, contact us, because we've opened companies for lots of people and we've had, great customer experiences, and we're happy to provide reviews. That's another thing that makes us different from a lot of visa agents, guys. We will create group messages with customers who have worked with us over the years and recently that can explain what we've done, why we've been helpful, because again, you're not just hiring an agent who's going to be like, okay, I'm going to stamp these paperwork and now, fuck off. If something happens, it's on you. It's not how it's going to work. You're going to have a team. We have 3 to 4 different people that are actively going to work to solve problems for you and to make sure that things are done in a timely way, because sometimes business culture in Vietnam can be very different than business culture in the West. Sometimes you need to nudge people, but you need to nudge people in a way that doesn't offend them or upset them. We're very good at getting people to get you the answers you want, and we know how to work with the Vietnamese. So this is another big advantage. We can also provide you with reliable contacts for, you name it, we can do it. We can find almost anything in the country. You need an apartment furnished, we can have it furnished. You want custom furniture, we can have it custom furnished. You need jobs, we can provide jobs. You need transportation contacts, you need contacts in smaller cities, we can find it, right? Like we know Vietnam really well. We built the foundation of our business based on Vietnam. So now in terms of Cambodia at the moment is just starting to open up. I think they were expecting a bigger rush than they're actually getting, because I saw when they first started making things easy again, we got quite a rush, and now it seems to have kind of gone a little bit down. I'm watching in the expat groups, the interest is not what it was about 2 to 3 weeks ago. So I think that right now things are kind of relaxed and there's a level of tolerance. It seems like they're kind of allowing people to do things that maybe are not necessarily the most legal in terms of visas. But my advice to you is that even if that's true, just from the lessons that I've learned dealing with Vietnam, I would still avoid doing anything that's too shady, and I would try to come into the country on the proper visa with a reliable sponsor company that actually has employees and has capital, and a reliable agent that actually gives a shit what happens to you. And again, everything can be okay today, and then next week they could decide that it's not okay, and you're swept up, and now you have all these problems, and you're having to leave the country or face blacklists. It's just so much better to do things the right way in the first place. And this is what I stress about Cambodia as well. I believe that opening a business and sponsoring your own visa is unquestionably the safest way to come to the country. Now, that being said, we can arrange sponsorship. We work with reliable companies. We work with reliable agents. And the beautiful thing is, once you pay for our initial service, those contacts become your contacts. You don't have to pay us each time that you need something done. You pay us our initial consulting fee. In the case of Cambodia, that we include the invitation letter with that cost. And then those contacts become your contacts, and you can use them how you see fit. We're going to provide you with email lists for employment in Cambodia if you're looking to teach English. If you're not, we can help you with other things, housing, transportation. We have local fixers that can arrange almost anything for you before you arrive. That we can help you in more provincial cities as long as you give us a little bit of notice. We can source out the contacts through our local contacts. They know people in all the provinces. They'll find you what you need found. What makes us different than most other services, guys, is that one, there's a level of accountability. You're going to be dealing with Western customer service. We're going to actually try to resolve your issues if you face any, and you're going to have somebody who's going to actively work to try to fix problems if they arrive. Whereas if you just deal with some random sponsor company who's just, maybe it's a shell company that was opened up explicitly with the purpose of sponsoring foreigners, well, when shit hits the fan, they're going to close the fucking company and they're going to pretend they don't even know you because they don't want the risk of getting themselves in trouble. So to avoid all that, what we try to do is work with people that are responsible from the get-go. Now, for some people, they might just want to do things the cheapest way. Okay, well then that's cool. We're not the service for you. I don't want it on my conscience if you get blacklisted or you get thrown out of the country. And I certainly don't want to hear about it later, because it's, you know, it's better to do things the right way. And I always say that going in. I am not one who sugarcoats things. I don't like to tell fluffy stories. Occasionally I talk myself out of business, but I like to tell people what can go wrong, the things that can happen depending on the choices that you make. And I think that as adults, that's the most that I could ask for somebody, is to just be straight with me. I'm a big boy. I can make my own decisions. I don't need someone to tell me whether or not, you know, I should do something or I shouldn't do something. I just need all the details and I'll make my own decision. And I feel like that's true for a lot of people. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video today, is I just really wanted to get it out there that, you know, what we do is not just a visa service. We are almost like a concierge service. We're gonna help you through the process of moving to a new country. We're gonna be there to catch you if you fall. And in 6 months and a year from now, if you need a new hookup on jobs, or you need a new visa contact to process something, or you wanna cross-check the quotes that your employer is giving you for work permits with our agents, you're gonna have these resources. Because that's another thing, guys. I'm gonna tell you a little bit, this is more focused on Vietnam, but there's many circumstances where foreigners will be from the outside and they'll be looking into the country with kind of like American or Canadian or Australian colored glasses on, and they're gonna think like, oh, these big corporate places, these are the places to work for. These are the places that are the most legit. When in reality, a lot of times, some of these big corporate places have ruined people's lives. They do absolutely incredibly shady business practices, and a lot of them have family or people they're, you know, connected with that are in high levels of government. So if they burn you, you're gonna have zero recourse, because these are multinationals that have a lot of money. Some of them are in China, some of them are in Vietnam also. You know, some of them are just Vietnamese based, but they're big corporations and they have lots of power and lots of capital. And let me tell you something, guys, in case you don't know this, you don't have any rights. You are a foreigner. Anytime they want to fucking throw you out of their country, you are gone, you know? And depending on who you're working for and how well connected they are to the government, they can really ruin your life. You can agree to a contract, get on a plane, fly all the way to Vietnam, get into the office on the first day, they hand you a contract that looks nothing like the contract that you originally agreed to, and suddenly you're being sent out to the provinces to work 6 days a week. It happens all the time. Just because a place is corporate, just because a place looks like they're by the book, does not mean they're gonna do the right thing by you. So the job contacts that we work with are people, we have people within the big companies, we have people within international schools, we have people within public schools, we have people who can do just about anything, right? Any kind of employment that you want, we have people that can do it. But we try to find people who are really looking to do honest business. They want foreigners, and they want to just hire somebody and fulfill whatever their HR requirements are. You want someone to hire you and just to maintain whatever you guys agree to in the contract, you know, and we connect the two. We'll help you look over your contract. We'll help make sure the contract is correct and there's nothing too fishy or funny in it. So we provide that service as well. If you do want help with resumes and you're already working with us in a consulting capacity, we're happy to look it over for you, but it's not essential, because really it comes down to your nationality, your passport, and your looks. Now, I know that sounds crazy if you've never spent time in Southeast Asia, but jobs in a lot of cases, sometimes even in cases of international schools, even in places that appear to be very by the book and very corporate, your experience is not always the most important thing. Oftentimes it's, are you attractive? Do you look the way they want you to look? You know, things like that matter a lot more than what you would think they do, right? There's no laws against discrimination in Vietnam. You know, if you are a young blonde girl with a British passport, holler at me, because we're gonna make it very easy for you to get in. If you're an older guy, you know, you're out of shape, you don't look as good as, you know, maybe you did 10, 20 years ago, it's gonna still be tough, but as long as you have a strong passport, it's likely that we're gonna be able to find you a job, get you in the country, it should be okay. Now, if you're coming from a developing country, you're not white, even if you're highly credentialed, it could be very difficult. We can try. I'm happy to try, but I want to be frank with you up front that unfortunately the hiring practices can be very unethical, and that there's no laws preventing it. It's perfectly acceptable to discriminate based on race, size, superficial things. There's nothing against that. Like, it's perfectly okay in their society. So you need to know that going forward, right? If you're an older person, almost always you're going to be picked second next to somebody who's younger. Now, it doesn't mean we can't get you a job. In most cases, as long as you have a strong passport, we can. So, there is flexibility, there is give. It's better that you message us with your specific set of circumstances, and we'll try to figure out the best way to get you into the country. If you're looking to teach English, then we can, like I said, you pay our initial consulting fee, we can try to get you hired, and then failing that, we have people that we can pay in those circumstances. And once again, I'm going to tell you up front whether it's gray area, whether it's fully above board, and ultimately it's going to be you who makes that choice. I don't tell you what to do. I tell you what I can do, and I tell you the pros, the cons, the risks, and the rewards. And at the end of the day, you have to put your big boy or big girl hat on, and you have to make a choice, right? What we'll do is we'll facilitate everything from that choice forward, but ultimately you need to decide how you want to proceed, right? We are happy to provide you customer reviews, customer references. We have tons of people we've helped over the years. We've had people who've made, on my other channel, you can go back and watch the customer review videos. We have tons of videos and content on customers we previously helped. At the end of every video, we have the white monkey got me a job. We have all these people who worked with us over the years, shot us little fun clips. I used to call myself the white monkey because it's a joke kind of amongst the ESL business that in Asia, they'll employ pretty much any skin suit with a fucking white face, and whether they're qualified or they're a habitual alcoholic who shows up drunk every day. Because in Southeast Asia and China, unfortunately, this is one of the biggest priorities, is they want the white face. Now, is that a deal breaker? No, of course not. I mean, if you're highly educated and you're a black person and you have a degree, of course you're going to get a job as long as you have a strong passport. But unfortunately, if you're coming from a developing country, even if you do have the documents, a lot of times, a lot of the recruiters are just not going to be interested. And the ones that are, they may be in provincial areas where it may be somewhat risky to go there. Because you have to remember something, guys. If it looks too good to be true, it often is. So for example, if you've been rejected left and right because of your passport, now suddenly somebody who's in a provincial part of Vietnam is willing to sponsor a free ride, you need to be very wary, because people do end up in human trafficking situations where their passports get taken, they don't get paid on time. And again, there's very little recourse for you because you're a foreigner, you're not going to really have any rights. Very often these provincial cities, the centers that you're working for are connected to the local government, and they're like little kingdoms. So when you go to the police might be the cousin of the guy who runs the center, and you may not get the help you need. You may have to go to several police stations and pay money, and then eventually you may be able to get your passport back. But what we try to do is we just try not to deal with those situations to begin with. If you have a strong passport and you do want to work in a provincial area, we do have responsible agents that can set you up with jobs in provincial parts of Vietnam as well. But for people who don't have strong passports, we can provide you our contacts, we can give you advice, but we're not going to ensure and guarantee that you're going to get into the country, because we're not a scam. We're not here to promise you the world and then we can't deliver. I'm going to try to be very frank with you about what I can do, what I can't do, the legality of it, whether it's in the gray area, whether it's fully legal. And then, like I said, you're going to make a decision on how you want to proceed. The only fee you ever pay to me is my consulting fee. Whether it's for me to fix a situation to get a sponsor company to get you into Vietnam, whether it's to get a sponsor company to issue an invitation letter and provide a tax ID for a business visa in Cambodia, I'm always just going to tell you what I can do, what's possible, and all the circumstances that are involved in the decision you're about to make. And then at the end of the day, you need to make your own choice and decide how you want to proceed. Now, that being said, once you work with me, I'm going to continue to help you. I mean, the only time I'm ever going to charge you more is if it's some kind of a big project and I need to do something like completely different than what we've done in the past. But if you pay me money and you're working with me for consulting and you enter Cambodia using our invitation letter, in 6 months, if you need a new job contact, well, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to try to find it for you. If you need a new hookup on real estate, I'm going to get out there and I'm going to try to find you the best deal that we can. We're going to reach out to all the agents agents we work with, and we're going to try to work out the best possible circumstances for you. It's the same in Vietnam. I have an example where a guy we helped enter Vietnam during the early part of the pandemic. He was one of the lucky ones. We got him sponsored with a teaching job. At the time, my fee was only $300, and we got him into the country. Everything was smooth, but he had a family emergency and he had to leave the country. And this is right before they started allowing people with exemptions back in. So we had to try to coordinate to get him approved, and we were able to get him back into the country, and I didn't charge him an additional $1. We just did it because he was a previous customer and he's worked with us in the past. You know, we actually said to him, I was like, listen, man, you're a good dude. You've worked with us in the past. I'm not going to ask you for any money. And he's like, well, if it works out, I'm going to throw you something. And I was like, well, you don't have to. So it was one of those situations. This is kind of how we work. You become part of the family. We have Facebook group chats that have hundreds of our previous customers in them. So as soon as you pay the consulting fee, you're put into those groups. And that's a great resource for information in Vietnam, Cambodia. We're starting to expand our services into other countries. So as we start to do more services, we're going to put everybody into those groups. So it's going to be just this massive resource of information from expats from all over the world. And it's a really great tool because you can get inside information from people who have worked with us, who are currently living in these countries, and they can take you through every step of the process. It's really a valuable thing. And a lot of the people who have worked with us have said how valuable it is when they, you know, it was very difficult at one point to get into Vietnam. You couldn't just book flights. You had to book charter flights. You had to hire guys in their spacesuits to take you from the airport to quarantine facilities. So we had this pool of information as people were entering the country. They were just providing step-by-step information as to how they were doing it, what they were paying, what hotels they were using, what services they were using, what was being allowed in those hotels, and people found it to be very valuable. So when you're working with us guys, you're getting a community. You're not just getting some visa agent who's going to stamp some documents and then tell you to fuck off. That's not what this is. This is a full relocation consulting service. We're going to help you while you're in the country. We're going to source resources for you. And we're going to try to make sure that when you enter the country, that you enter in the most responsible way possible. Now, does that mean it's the cheapest way possible? No. And I'll say this again. If you are just looking for the cheapest price, don't message me. I'm sure there is some shady fucking people out there that'll find you a fake sponsor company and, use some shell company and charge whatever, but I don't want you're being blacklisted or you falling into some kind of crazy financial problem on my conscience, on my reviews. So what I try to do is I have my customers spend a little bit more up front, but we get better results in the long term, and that's essentially what I'm selling. I believe in what we're doing, and I believe that we've helped a lot of people, and I believe that many people see the value of doing things right in the first place versus later having to clean up a mess when suddenly these governments decide to enforce rules that they may not have enforced previously. And I think it's better to be on the safe side than it is to fuck around. What went down in Vietnam over the last 6 months was crazy. I left Saigon the day before Directive 16 came into place. And during Directive 16, they shut the city down, they barbed-wired streets, some people couldn't get access to food, they brought in the military, they started purging thousands and thousands of foreigners, and I just don't want to see something like that happen to anybody. So it's very important to me that even though a country like Cambodia right now seems very relaxed, and it seems like kind of the visa policies that Vietnam had pre-pandemic, I prefer to do things in a much more legit way in the beginning, even if it's overkill, because you don't know in 6 months, 1 year, you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know how these policies could change. So it's important that we try our best, given whatever your financial resources are, to get you into the country in the most legal way. Now, that is not always going to be the cheapest way, because again, you could probably find a fake shell company, they're going to use to sponsor you, and some agent who doesn't give a shit, and once your paperwork is stamped, that's the end of the relationship, right? And everything, they might even be nice to you. Oh, I love this agent, I've used them for years. But watch what happens when suddenly immigration is knocking on their door, and now people are starting to get arrested, like what happened in Da Nang. And suddenly those agents that you've been friends with for years don't want to take your phone calls and pretend they don't even know you, because this happened all over Vietnam. There's no reason why this couldn't happen in all the neighboring countries. Thailand did their purge before Vietnam, and then they started to open and they start to close, and then they start to open and they start to close. And these people who are getting kind of caught in these transitions are really getting fucked over, and it's costing them lots of money and lots of problems. And it's the same in Vietnam. It's highly expensive, it's complicated. Are they gonna open? Are they not gonna open? Maybe they are, maybe they're not. They've been talking about opening every month since the beginning of the pandemic. What makes this time true and the last time not true? What are the visas gonna look like? Are they gonna maintain this kind of strict difficulty with getting business visas? Are the requirements going to stay the same? Is there going to be a relaxing of requirements? What is that going to look like? Nobody can tell. So the only thing I can tell you is if you're ready to come now, you need to deal with the circumstances that are now, not what could be in 3 to 6 months, because you could wait 3 to 6 months and it could just get more expensive and more complicated. Now the COVID thing might go away, but it doesn't mean that these countries want to change their policies. Maybe they like their new policies. Maybe they're making lots of money and they're filtering out riffraff this way, or at least that's how they perceive it, you know. And I mean, maybe that's the way they continue to do business. So waiting, in my opinion, has not always been a good move. A lot of people who started out talking to me in the very beginning could have got into the country for like a couple grand, and by the time it got to the very peak, the worst part of the visa situation during the pandemic, it was thousands of dollars to get into Vietnam. Now it's gotten a little bit better. It's still expensive, but it's more streamlined, it's more efficient. We know how to get people in the right way. You know, we know how to work within the framework of the new rules. So at the moment, this is something we can do. Is it perfect? No. Has it gotten better? Yes, it definitely has gotten better. We can definitely get people in if you have the required documents. Now, this is another question that's very common. I want to teach English in Vietnam. I don't have a degree. Now, you can watch my old videos on my other channel. I was messing around. I made a lot of videos about how you don't need a degree in Vietnam and what a joke it is. And to be honest, if you're physically in Vietnam, you don't need a degree. If you're in the country right now, I can get you employed, no problem. If you need a TRC, you need to get a business visa from a tourist visa, we can do that. You know, you're not going to need a degree, but you got to understand, for every document you don't have, you're going to have to pay. And that's always been true. It's just that the numbers are going to be a little bit higher because the stakes are higher, because now they know that if you don't have that degree and you don't pay, you're going to be on your ass. Now, this is something I should explain, because most people probably have never heard of a service company. So essentially in Vietnam, they have this thing, it's an entity called a service company. And what service companies do is you pay them money and suddenly certain things are not required for work permits, for TRCs, for this type of thing. Now, in the past, you could just rock up on a tourist visa, easily do a border run, come back on a business visa, or rock up on a business visa. You don't have a degree, no problem. You pay the service company. Right now, that's not possible if you're outside the country. If you're outside the country, you gotta have the degree, you gotta have the experience letter. If you're physically in Vietnam and you just need an emergency TRC, they're about to throw you out of the country, you might be blacklisted, you really wanna stay, you wanna get off the blacklist, you wanna get on the right documents, you're not gonna need a degree, we can sort it out. But just bear in mind, if you don't have any documents, for every document you don't have, the price is gonna go up, as we're gonna have to use a service company to get you approved. So I just gotta make that very clear. Inside Vietnam, no, you don't need a degree. It's a joke. Come on, give me a break. Outside of Vietnam, yes, that's the problem. You're going to be dealing with the embassies. Can you use a fake degree? It's up to you. Probably you'll get away with it. You're going to need to take it to the consulate, authenticate it. I'm not your father. I'm not going to tell you what to do. If you want to try to go that route, my opinion is you'll probably be okay, but ultimately that's a choice that you need to make for yourself. And again, I'm not going to endorse doing something like that, but I'm going to be frank with you that you probably could do it if you really want to do it that way. Cambodia, you don't need a degree to teach at all. Essentially, the value of what we're offering in Cambodia is that we're going to provide sponsorship for the business visa, so you enter on the correct visa. You're not going to have to pay any kind of weird middleman or use any kind of shady shell companies and change the visa. Now, if you are in Cambodia and you want to have a tourist visa changed to a business visa using a reliable sponsor, we can do that also. So you can message us about that. Like I said, we only work with companies that have capital and that are real companies. We don't use shell companies, because we don't want to see 6 months, 1 year, 2 years from now, you have a major problem because the Cambodian government decides that they're going to restructure their immigration policy. You know, and there's nothing really that would protect you if that happens. You can look at the cases of what went down in Vietnam, and you can see how how many people's lives were completely uprooted and ruined just by, cheaping out on their initial visas. Now, we can do it also. We can help you change from a tourist visa to a business visa. If you're already in the country, we can help. We can provide reliable sponsorship. But ideally, if you're coming into the country, it's always better to come on the correct visa than it is to try to deal with something that is a little bit kind of in the gray area. It's just better to do it right the first time. Now, if you're looking to work and teach in Cambodia, we can provide teaching contacts. We have an email list that we're compiling. It's getting bigger and bigger every day. So you're going to have access to our email list. You're going to have access to our apartment people who can help you get under market rentals. Make sure you get something good. You don't get ripped off, because one of the ways you can get ripped off very easily in Cambodia and also in Vietnam is through electricity. So when you rent an apartment, it's very important to check what the cost of the kilowatt is, because some of these places will try to increase the cost of the kilowatt and they'll justify it by saying, oh, well, the building has common areas, so you have to pay more for electricity. But the amount that they raise the electricity is much more than what the cost of covering these common areas would be. So we try to put you with people who know the business, who can find you something suitable. If you're looking to invest in the country, we have people who can help you invest. If you're looking to open companies in Cambodia or Vietnam, we can help. We can help you open companies in a lot of places in the world. You can check out our other videos. But, since today we're specifically discussing the services for Vietnam and Cambodia, and I coupled them because Southeast Asia to me is kind of like one market. We do some things with Thailand. If you have a US passport, we can assist you opening companies with the Amnesty Treaty. We have a couple interesting workarounds. You can check out our video on opening companies in Thailand for more details. You can meet my business partner, Matt. He's a fantastic guy. He's much more corporate than me. He's much more clean cut than me. I like to think of us as the odd couple. I'm a little bit of the more street smart, kind of knowing how to get around things, and he's the by the book kind of, button down shirt kind of guy. And I think together we really are a great team. My other business partner, he's Viet Q. He's based in the US. Another fantastic guy, lived in Vietnam for many years, knows the industry, has family connections all throughout government. So, our team is pretty solid, and that's exactly what you're getting when you work with us, is you're getting a team. You're not out there by yourself. If there's a problem, we're there to fix it. If rules change and we have to make on-the-fly adjustments to keep you safe, to keep you legal, then we're going to do our best to do that. What we don't do is we don't lie to you, we don't sugarcoat, we don't promise things we can't deliver. All we do is we present you with your options, and then we allow you to make the choice that you want to make with as much information as you need to make that choice. We provide a Western standard of customer service, but also, we're busy people too. We don't have time for people who are tire kickers. Like, if you're not serious about doing business, please don't waste my time. I'm a busy guy. I'm assuming you're a busy person. We want to help people. We want to act in good faith. We want to connect you to our partners in Cambodia and in Vietnam that act in good faith. But we really don't have time for someone who's going to sit there and ask me to explain the last 2 years of the Vietnamese immigration policy history, right? Now, if you want that information, we can do a consulting session. I charge $50 for a half hour, and we can sit down and I can catch you up with everything that went down in these countries over the course of the last 2 years. I'm happy to do that. But occasionally I get people who are not serious about doing business with us. All they want to do is get free information. So please just be respectful of my time, and I will be respectful of yours. You don't want to get ripped off and scammed. I don't want to have my time wasted. So let's approach each other like adults. If the first thing you're going to do is come to me and start acting as if everything I'm saying to you is a scam, then seriously, don't message me. I don't want your business. I don't want to deal with it. I have enough in my fucking life than to listen to somebody who's a complete paranoid maniac raving about how everybody's trying to take advantage of them. Spare me. If you want customer references, you're a reasonable person, you're looking to do business with people who are going to do the right thing by you, I'm more than happy to provide customer references. We have a Facebook fan page, we have reviews, we've helped all different types of people. Every once in a while, I encounter somebody who's completely mentally unhinged. I get stalkers, I get insane people, so this is just part of being a public figure. I get people who become obsessed with me, but I feel like we have done enough good by people that the track record is out there. Unfortunately, you can't make everybody happy. Some people are just Looney Tunes, or they don't have realistic expectations, and we just do our best best to do the right thing by people, and I think our customer references speak for that, and I think that that should be enough for us to move forward in a relationship. All right, guys, I just want to thank you so much for watching the video. Smash the like button, subscribe to this channel, and check out our original channel, the New York Nomad. Please subscribe, like, share the videos if you dig the content. If you guys are looking to come to Vietnam or Cambodia and you want to work with people that are responsible and that give a shit what happens to you, give us a holler. If you're just looking for the next cheap Charlie, then take a walk, because I really don't have time for it. I'm mostly interested in working with people who are serious and who are serious about getting their lives started in a new country and doing so in a safe and responsible way. If you guys are looking to do a TEFL course, check out the New York TEFL Academy. It's the TEFL you cannot fail. If you guys are interested in opening a business in either Cambodia or Vietnam, check out our videos on those two subjects. If you guys are interested in opening a business in other markets and for residency or for business visas, and we have several videos on different services we can offer, you can check them out on this channel. But if there's a place that we haven't spoken about and you want to specifically hire us to get to work on it, we are happy to take on, special requests. We can look into certain places for you. We can source consultancies, we can source contacts. We have a really good system for kind of finding out who's who. So if you are looking at a different destination and one we haven't talked about yet, just give us a reach out on the Facebook fan page and we'll be happy to do some diligence for you. Anyway, subscribe, share. Thanks for watching. I hope this clarifies a little bit about what we do and what we're offering. I hope it helps people who don't know about what happened in Vietnam over the last 6 months. And in my opinion, you can't be too safe, and I think it's important to try to do things in the best way you possibly can. So, looking forward, I hope everybody has a great year. Chúc Mừng Năm Mới, Happy New Year to all my Vietnamese family and friends. I love you guys. Happy Chinese New Year, and I hope everybody has a prosperous year of the tiger. I hope we all do well this year. I'm going to be based in Phnom Penh for probably the next 6 months to a year. So if you work with us for our Cambodia service, let's link up afterwards, hang out. I'm very approachable. I love to chill with people who watch the show. Most of my customers end up being longtime friends. So if you have any questions, we have Facebook, Instagram. Check the description below. There's lots of ways to contact us. Like I said, subscribe to the New York Nomad. That's kind of slowly transitioning. It used to be a mix of consulting and travel. Now we're making it mostly our travel channel. And this is going to be our consulting focused channel where we talk about business. So that way, if you're interested in more of our travel content, you can watch the New York Nomad. And if you're interested in more of our consulting content, you can watch the New York Nomad Consulting. We have Instagram, the New York Nomads, because it's me and my girl, right? So there's two of us. So please hit up the Instagram, and we have the Facebook fan page. Any questions, reach out. I absolutely do not mind asking questions if you're serious about doing business. That's all I ask. Approach me the way that I'm approaching you. Let's be serious. Let's talk. No one's going to try to pressure you to buy something. We're going to have a discussion. We're going to see if what I can do is the right fit for your situation. And hopefully we can work together. Thank you for watching. Subscribe, share, smash the like button, comment, help us get these videos around. We really appreciate all your guys' support. And for those of you who have been watching us since I was a bummy TEFL teacher, going teacher, and kicking around in public schools, thank you. Thank you for growing with us. Thank you for supporting us. We're going to try to always be true to ourselves. We've had to clean up the act a little bit just because, YouTube is, they've got their own algorithm, and, the things that they approve of, for their advertising isn't always the things that come out of my mouth. So I have had to clean up my act a little bit. I'm being a little bit less crazy, but I still am, the same sense of humor, the same approachable guy. Like I said, if you make it out to Cambodia while I'm living out there, let's hang out.
Brush your face and wash your teeth, son.
Yo, my man got me a job. Come to Vietnam.
The white monkey got me a job during the pandemic.
The white monkey got me into Vietnam during COVID.
The white monkey got me into Vietnam during the pandemic. I'm at school now on break. If he did it for me, he can do it for you. It's pretty easy. Check him out.
Ooh, to whom it may concern, White Monkey Syndicate got me the job of all jobs. Thank you.
White monkey got me a job. Brush your teeth.
The White Monkey Syndicate got me a job, aka your father.
White monkey got me a job.
White Santa, baby, brush your teeth.
Monkey got me a job, hit him up.
Yo, it's the Whoopi Goldberg of the East Side game, educating the youngins in the English.
Monkey got me a motherfucking job.
White Jesus, baby.
White monkey got me a job.
Brush your teeth. Hey, what's up, guys? You thinking about coming to Vietnam? You're not sure where to start? You've heard a lot of things online. You don't know what's true. You don't know what's not. We here at the White Monkey Syndicate offer a consulting service where we help you get on your feet in Vietnam. We give you advice on negotiating contracts with employers. We help you with real estate agents, visa agents that are reliable and that you can trust. We help you get started in this amazing country and get on your feet. We help you get into different opportunities that might be more difficult for you if you were just landing in the country on your own. And we help you avoid a lot of the pitfalls and problems that you could have as a newcomer here. We provide you with reliable job recruiters, visa agents, real estate agents, and advice. If you guys are thinking about coming to Vietnam, hit us up for a consultation. We'll help you get started, help you get on your feet, and hopefully you'll love Vietnam as much as we do. What do you think of when you think of Albania? I think of opportunity. I think of a country that's open. I think of a country that wants long-stay expats, that wants people to come and invest, wants new ideas, and is looking towards the West. I think that Albania is a beautiful country with incredible landscapes that can offer a very comfortable lifestyle at a very reasonable price. We at the White Monkey Syndicate will help navigate your journey to becoming an expat in Albania. We're working with some of the top lawyers in the city. We can help establish businesses. We can help you get your residency. We can help you get real estate. We can arrange almost any contact that you might need for the process of moving here in almost any city in the country. We will simplify the process. We'll make it a lot easier for you to move to a country that maybe in the past would have been more of a challenge. With our help, it's going to be a walk in the park.